Okay, thank you, Paspute sir, for joining us. Uh, Good morning, everyone. Today we will discuss next important topic from the central nervous system, that is motor tracts. As usual, three students from your batch are present with me: Tushar, Komal, and Vaishnavi. Yes, yes, they are present with me for today's session. So we will start today's discussion, that is pyramidal tracks. We already discussed sensory tracks. So these motor tracks, they are also called as descending tracks or also called as efferent tracks. Okay, motor tracks are also called as descending tracks as they are descents from cerebral cortex downwards from spinal cord to the effector organs. They are also called as efferent tracks as they are going from central nervous system towards periphery. So these motor tracks are classified into three types, that is pyramidal tracks, corticopulbar tracks, and if you can see, third one is extrapyramidal tracks. We will discuss one by one. These pyramidal tracks, why name is given? As all of you know, they are in medullary pyramid. There is a decussation. In medulla, there is one part which is called as pyramid. So all these tracks are present in the pyramid. That's why they are called as pyramidal tracks. So these tracks are also called as corticospinal, as they start from cerebral cortex and they extend their course towards they extend towards spinal cord. Uh, These pyramidal tracts are further classified into three subtypes, that is cross pyramidal tract, uncrossed pyramidal tract. These cross pyramidal tracts are also called as lateral corticospinal tract, and uncrossed pyramidal tract are also called as anterior corticospinal tract. Why they are called as lateral corticospinal? Why they are called as anterior corticospinal? Because these cross pyramidal tract are present in the lateral white column of the spinal cord. That's why they are named as lateral corticospinal. And this uncrossed pyramidal tract, they are present in the anterior column of the spinal cord. That's why they are known as anterior corticospinal tract. There is one small group which is called as uncrossed small pyramidal tract that also we will study. So we will start discussion of pyramidal tract. These pyramidal tracts, unlike that of sensory tracts, these pyramidal tracts are consist of two neurons. Two neurons. Sensory tracts was consist of three neurons, and this consists of two neurons. One is called as upper motor neuron that starts from cerebral cortex, primary motor area of cerebral cortex, and extends from that area to the anterior gray horn cell of the spinal cord. That is upper motor neuron, where it gets terminated. From this region, lower motor neuron starts, which extends from anterior gray horn of the cell, and it is terminates to the effector organ, that is usually skeletal muscle. After that, you will get contraction of skeletal muscle and movement of different organs you can observe. That is the upper and lower motor neuron. So this concept should be clear in your mind. I will repeat. Upper motor neuron starts from primary pyramidal. It starts from primary motor area of cerebral cortex. That area is number is given. Area number 4. It extends from that area to the anterior gray horn cell of the spinal cord, where it gets terminate. From that lower motor neuron start, which extends from that anterior gray horn uh, extends from anterior gray horn cell of the spinal cord to the effector organ, that is skeletal muscles. The next important point, out of all these pyramidal tracts, 55% of tract ends in the cervical region and 20% of tracts ends in the thoracic region and 25% of tracts terminates in the lumbar region. So it is very important characteristic feature. Then out of this pyramidal tracts, about 80% of the pyramidal tracts consist of crossed fibers. They are crossed. They occupy lateral column of the spinal cord, and only 20% remains uncrossed. They occupy anterior column of the spinal cord. General course of a track, as already we discussed, general course. We will directly start with our first track, that is tracks in the lateral column of spinal cord, lateral or and anterior corticospinal tract. We will study these two tracks together, lateral and anterior corticospinal tract. Okay, these both tracks belongs to pyramidal tract. As first point, it consists of upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. Upper motor neuron starts from primary motor area, area number 4 of cerebral cortex. Okay, from that it runs downwards from internal capsule. Please mute yourself.
ते हे नाही केलं का हे दे दाखव.
Okay, upper motor neuron starts from cerebral cortex. Upper motor neuron starts from cerebral cortex. It runs downwards from internal capsule. It runs downwards. Then it runs from midbrain, then pons, then from medulla oblongata, and when it reach upper motor neuron of lateral and anterior corticospinal tract, when they reach at medulla oblongata, what happens? That is fibers from cross pyramidal tract. These fibers from cross pyramidal tract, they get crossed to each other as shown in this diagram. They get crossed to each other and then they occupy lateral column of the spinal cord here. That's why they are called as lateral corticospinal tract. Okay, while fibers from anterior corticospinal tract, these fibers they do not cross. They runs without crossing. They runs downwards into the spinal cord and they occupy anterior gray horn, anterior white column of the spinal cord. That's why they are called as anterior corticospinal tract. This is a basic understanding. Okay. So at respective spinal level, this upper motor neuron gets terminated at anterior gray horn cell. From this region, lower motor neuron starts, which is shown in this diagram with red color. This lower motor neuron comes out from spinal cord and it is supplied to the effector organ, which causes effect, that is contraction of muscle and working of movement of organs. Okay, movement of extremities, for example. This is a course of lateral and anterior corticospinal tract. You can even see this diagrammatic representation. Okay, anterior and lateral corticospinal tract. It starts from primary motor area of cerebral cortex, runs from internal capsule downwards, and these are cross fibers. This is cross pyramidal tract. Number 1 runs downwards, occupy lateral white column of the spinal cord. That's why they are called as lateral corticospinal tract. While you can see these other fibers, they do not cross and they occupy anterior white column of the spinal cord. So they are called as anterior corticospinal tract. So these two are basically important tracts from the pyramid, crossed and uncrossed pyramidal tract. Third one is a small uncrossed small pyramidal tracts. You can see this small, it starts from here and it's here. So these are uncrossed small pyramidal tract. Number 3. So what is the important characteristic feature? It is descending through lateral white column of spinal cord and terminating on the same side. Function, it provides bilateral supply of certain muscles in the body, for example respiratory muscles. So in pyramidal region of one side, they will escape from paralysis. That is the important function of uncrossed small pyramidal tract. Functions of pyramidal tract. These pyramidal tracts are concerned with voluntary movements, and also they are concerned with skilled movements. These fibers of pyramidal tract transmit motor impulses from motor areas of cerebral cortex to anterior horn cell of the spinal cord, and they are involved in voluntary movements and skillful movements. Lesion. This is very important topic. If lesion is occurring to these pyramidal tracts, what is going to happen? This lesion causes stroke. Okay, that is called as spastic paralysis. This paralysis, stroke or spastic paralysis, is due to either due to the hemorrhage or thrombosis. Okay, hemorrhage is bleeding due to the increased blood pressure. Cerebral arteries get burst. It may cause hemorrhage. That is called as hemorrhage. And thrombosis is a obstruction to the arteries. So this causes spastic paralysis. So this lesion is upper motor neuron, and lower motor neuron lesion causes flaccid paralysis. These two lesions causes different types of paralysis that you should know. Okay. Following effects, what effects are observed after these lesions? So on voluntary muscles, all voluntary muscles gets loss of voluntary movements in all extremities, all four extremities, upper two and lower two, as well as on muscle tone. So upper motor neuron lesion causing spasticity and hypertonia. On the contrary, with lower motor neuron lesion, which causes flaccidity and hypotonia. Okay. Next, on reflexes. All superficial reflexes are lost and deep reflexes are exaggerated in upper motor neuron region. Exaggerated means increased in upper motor neuron region, and they are diminished in lower motor neuron region. Abnormal plantar reflexes you get in upper motor neuron region, that you called it as a Babinski sign. This Babinski sign is positive. What we are doing? Just we are moving pointed object on plantar surface. Okay. So normally you get plantar flexion of great all toes, including great toe. But in case of upper motor neuron lesion, you will get dorsiflexion, that is upward movement of a big toe and all toes. That is called as Babinski sign positive. Next point, effect of lesion at different levels. So if you get lesion at cerebral cortex, what is expected to happen? So for this purpose, we will take help of this diagram. So if you get lesion at cerebral cortex, in cerebral cortex, all upper motor neuron, all fibers are spread in different areas. For example, fibers coming from leg are present here, from arm they are present here, fibers coming face they are present here. Okay. So if you get lesion at cerebral cortex, for example, arm, the fibers which are supplying to arm, you will get monoplasia. Only one limb will get affected, but it will be contralateral monoplasia, as there will be decussation of fibers to the opposite side. So you can see here it will get contralateral monoplasia. Just come below. If you get lesion at internal capsule, what is happening? All fibers they are coming together at internal capsule. Okay, uh, and that's why lesion, either thrombosis or hemorrhage, this lesion is going to cause at internal capsule. It is going to cause again hemiplegia. Whole one body get affected. Okay, but it will be contralateral, as there will be a decussation or crossing of tracks in the middle of oblongata. So you will get contralateral hemiplegia after lesion of internal capsule. So if you still come lower, if you get lesion of lower motor neuron lesion, okay, you will get again monoplasia, because only that fibers will supply to that particular organ. So if fibers are supplying to lower extremities, you will get monoplasia of lower extremities, but it will be ipsilateral. The meaning of ipsilateral will be at the same side, because this lesion will be after pyramidal decussation. That is basic understanding of different at lesions at different level uh, in the motor system. Next tract that we have to study is corticobulbar tract. This tract originates from the precentral gyrus, that is primary motor area of cerebral cortex, and it is distributed uh, bilaterally on both sides to the reticular formation. That is, reticular formation is present in the brainstem. So they are distributed to the brainstem in the cranial nerves nuclei, because almost all cranial nerves are originates at the brainstem. So this corticobulbar tract ends at the nuclei of cranial nerves. We will take example of this diagram. So this tract starts from uh, primary motor area of cerebral cortex. From internal capsule they runs downwards, and this is a brainstem, different part of brainstem, that is midbrain, bones, medulla oblongata. So all these fibers, they get terminated at reticular formation, and also the nuclei of nerve fibers. You can see this is the origin of trochlear nerve. Few fiber terminates here. This is the origin of trigeminal nerve. Few fibers terminates here. Then this is a nerve origin of facial nerve. Few fibers get terminated at nuclei of facial nerve. This is the origin of vagus nerve. Few fibers is terminated at the nuclei of vagus nerve, like that. So fibers of corticobulbar tract starts at primary motor area of cerebral cortex and gets terminated at the nuclei of different cranial nerves and reticular formation. What is a function of this tract? So this tract is concerned with voluntary control of the larynx, palate, upper and lower face, jaw, and eyes. So of course, lesion to this tract, it is going to cause pseudobulbar palsy. It is a condition in which causes weakness of muscles, which controls swallowing, talking, and movements of the tongue, etc. So this is a corticobulbar tract. Next, we will discuss now extrapyramidal tracts. So these tracts acts as an alternative route. This is the third part of the classification. First part of motor tracts, that was pyramidal tracts. Second part corticobulbar tract, and third part is extrapyramidal tract. This tract acts as an alternative route for voluntary impulses, and it forms a platform on which the pyramidal system works. So this tract helps to the pyramidal system and helps to the various motor activities of the body. First track cortico. First track is rubrospinal tract. We will take example of this diagram. Rubrospinal tract. A particular characteristic feature of extrapyramidal tract. All tract, they do not originate from the motor area of the cerebral cortex, but they all originates from the brainstem, either from midbrain or from medulla oblongata, and they are supplied. This is the midbrain, okay, and this is the midbrain. This is the medulla oblongata. They originate from midbrain and medulla oblongata, and they are supplied to the spinal cord. They occupy either lateral right column of the spinal cord, or they also occupy anterior right column of the spinal cord, and they are supplying to the different muscles of the body. Okay, so first track is rubrospinal tract. This one, it starts from red nucleus, superior colliculus. Rubrospinal tract starts from superior colliculus of a midbrain. Immediately, these fibers get crossed. That is called as decusation to the opposite side. Okay, rubrospinal tract. We are talking about second track. Rubrospinal tract not starts from red nucleus. Make it clear. Rubrospinal tract, it starts from red nucleus of a midbrain. Okay, immediately after that, it gets decussed to the opposite side, descend downwards. Okay, then occupies lateral right column of a spinal cord and gets terminated at anterior gray horn of a spinal cord. Okay, this rubrospinal tract, if you see function of a rubrospinal tract, it got facilitatory influence on flexor muscle tone. So it got some influence on the muscle tone, that is flexor muscle tone. Second tract is tectospinal tract. This tectospinal tract starts from superior colliculus of the midbrain. Then there is a decusation to the opposite side. Then it descends downwards and it occupies anterior column of a spinal cord and it gets terminated at white anterior gray horn of the cell here. Okay, so this Tectospinal tract. If you see function of a tectospinal tract, it conveys impulses of postural movements in response to visual and auditory stimuli. Okay. So then third tract we will study now, that is reticulospinal tract. Okay. This is reticulospinal tract. It starts from reticular formation of medulla oblongata. This is the reticular formation of medulla oblongata, from where reticulospinal tract starts and runs downwards. Then in the spinal cord, it occupies anterior right column of the spinal cord and gets terminated at anterior gray horn cell. So this reticulospinal tract, it causes, it has got effect on muscle tone. It is possible for modification of respiration, alteration of BP, alteration of transmission of sensory impulses. So this region to this tract causes disturbances in respiration, it causes disturbances in blood pressure, it causes disturbance in movements of body, and also it causes disturbances in muscle tone. So this reticulospinal tract is very important. After that, vestibulospinal tract, this one. The vestibulospinal tract starts from the uh, medulla oblongata, then it runs downwards, it occupies lateral right column of the spinal cord and gets terminated at anterior giron cell. This tract causes uh, influences on reflex spinal activities. It is concerned with adjustment of position of the head and body during angular and linear movements. The lesion of this tract causes difficulty in adjustment of head and body during movement. Olivospinal tract exact function is not known, but it possibly forms pathway through which impulses from cortex and thalamus may reach to the spinal cord. And lastly, medial longitudinal fasciculus, the functions coordination of reflex ocular movements and integration of eye and neck movements. So these are important course and function of these extrapyramidal tracts, uh, and the lesion important is its applied physiology. Sometimes you get extrapyramidal symptoms, which is called as EPS. So what are these extrapyramidal symptoms? It includes dystonia. Okay, it includes dystonia, that is continuous spasms and muscle contractions, or it develops akathisia. Akathisia, it is motor restlessness, or it develops Parkinsonism, that is rigidity, or it develops bradykinesia, that is slowness of movements, or this extrapyramidal symptom develops tremors and tardive dyskinesia. So this is irregular, jerky movements. So usually these extrapyramidal symptoms, these are caused by consuming antipsychotic drugs that are antagonized. These are dopamine antagonized D2 receptors. These are haloperidol, flibanserin, and even some antiemetic drugs causes EPS, that is metoclopramide, chlorpromazine, and prochlorperazine. So these are the discussion about pyramidal tracks. So you study it well, and if you got any questions, any queries, you can ask to me on my personal number. Thank you. No?